And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check.
It was one of the most extraordinary, exciting, positive days in the history of the United States of America. 250,000 people, probably more, came to Washington to march, to make a statement, to say to the country, we're changing. It was a second declaration of independence.
So I learned about it as a student, and as I asked questions about the March on Washington and what its significance was and the purpose and so forth, I found out that I could not only learn more about it from school, but also relatives and my parents and grandparents and people in my family, unlike other historical events, had firsthand experience and impressions and reactions.
The significance of that march is that it raised the consciousness of the inequality to the nation. And that is what still is being felt today. The multicultural aspect of that march, I believe, validated the cause without question. Because it wasn't just one people, it was all the people crying out for justice.
I was in high school in England at the time of the march. Coming from a different country, it had a profound effect on internationally. And to see a peaceful march in Washington was in direct contrast to the violence of how the Freedom Riders were treated. And that itself was pretty profound, and to see the number of people and the fact that although predominantly African American, there were many races in that group. Having said that, I think the most profound thing that I remember was not the march itself, but Dr. King's speech at the end. That was a piece of oratory that I think touched everybody, no matter what your race, no matter what country you were from. His "I Have a Dream" speech will always be one of the great speeches in human history.
That speech that Martin Luther King made, that brought everybody down to their knees, and he hadn't prepared that speech for that time. He saw that crowd, that massive crowd, and he just let loose, man, and brought in all those biblical things and all those social things, and brought it down to where people could understand what he was talking about, having a bank that went bankrupt and all that kind of stuff,
And my God, I sat there, all of almost 12 years of age, enraptured by a person who could paint pictures in my mind with his words. I have a dream that on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will one day sit at the table of brotherhood. I could remember seeing things in my mind.
We turned on our little tiny black and white TVs, and there was Dr. King. Poor people didn't have a fair shake. The dream that was America, the Constitution, was really not being honored. And the person who really had the guts to get up and let folks know, the person that other people would follow to say that this was wrong, was right before us on TV.
He was number 15 or 16 on a list of 18 people that spoke that day. He just came at the end. To the majority of Americans, he was a rabble-rouser, didn't know how to stay in his place, that kind of stuff. So, America has grown up to see that the things that he was doing or trying to do were things that now we all say was a great deal, that, you know, we all appreciate the work that he did and we're forever indebted. But at the time, that wasn't the majority view of the work that he was doing.
Everybody knows about Martin Luther King, what he did for the country. And he was a big inspiration to the whole world. He uplifted what was happening in the world at that time. So everybody had a touch of it. So it makes us more wiser to what to be aware of.
There are a few individuals that have profoundly affected the world, not just their own nation. And they've usually done it by, in a peaceful manner, not a violent manner. There's something very profound about somebody taking abuse but maintaining love of the people that are abusing them, or a degree of tolerance of the people that are abusing them. And Dr. King preached understanding across all races.
I think the ideals and goals of the march remain relevant for several reasons. You know, health disparities continue to exist. Educational disparities continue to exist. Employment disparities continue to exist. Salary inequities are pervasive.
The overt acts and behaviors of racial discrimination has been addressed and has been, in most cases, removed in society, like the classifications of white and black bathrooms in the South. So from overt now becomes covert, and that is difficult to tease out. So if you were to ask me, has it been solved? No, not by a long shot. Has it been, is it continually, does it require continual focus and to address these things? Yes.
We still have a way to go in terms of true equality. I think people are protected by the law in terms of equality, but we still know that we're still dealing with racial inequality. We're still dealing with economic inequality, and those two things are tied together.
I think we still need to bolster our admission process to make sure that all Americans that are eligible and qualified get a fair shot. I think on the healthcare side, I think that we need to be in line with all the other industrialized countries of the world where healthcare is a right, where it's provided for, just like the right to vote, the right to bear arms. We should have a right to healthcare. I think these are some of the things we have to do. And I think with respect to the inequality in income, I think that still has to be addressed.
If I can make a United States that would really fulfill Dr. King's dream, I'd like to see folks have equal opportunity, free college, for example. Not only have educational opportunities that would include higher education, I would like to see us train our children to not only have respect for each other, but train them in a way that enables them to be gainfully employed. And I think we need to have a high quality health system that has access.
To me, the answer is giving all people equal opportunity in terms of a good education.
So what can be done? I think education is paramount. I think rules, regulations, and policies reinforce, the expectations that we adhere to certain or openness and fairness. But education is very, very important at every level, from family level, community level, social level, in educational institutions, encouraging and requiring the people to focus more on, or focus on the content of the character, the qualities, the preparation, the things that are really important, as opposed to the appearances and race or ethnicity of an individual.
I think the American dream is exactly what Dr. King was speaking of. The fact that everybody has a right. That everybody has a right to shoot for the moon. And everybody has the right to enjoy life to the fullest and the right to try. And my concern is that we're forgetting and we're not telling the stories, of one of the greatest people in the history of this country who had an enormous effect upon so many, both people of color and non-color, and changed our world and our country in enormous ways.
And the next generation, with no doubt, will be an even better one than it is today.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the